Welcome to Mr. Fearhouse. If you're hearing this, you've stepped into a quiet corner of the night, the kind of place where eyes linger a little too long, and shadows seem to breathe when no one's around. Tonight's theme is one of the oldest fears we know: being watched. 3 true encounters, told by those who realized too late that they were never really alone. Windows, cameras, open doors, an empty forest. The spaces we trust most become hunting grounds. These aren't stories about monsters or ghosts. These are about attention, unwanted, patient, and far too close. And if you listen carefully, you might start to notice how often you're being seen too. Most people watch these videos, feel that chill crawl up their spine, and then forget to subscribe. But if you're still here, you're not most people, are you? Tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Go ahead, leave it in the comments. I like to know who's awake with me this late. You might want to leave a light on. Here are tonight's encounters. The first night I saw him, I thought it was just one of those weird passing moments, something you catch out of the corner of your eye and immediately rationalize away. I was making tea, standing by my kitchen window, when I looked across the alley and noticed someone standing perfectly still in the window opposite mine. At first, it didn't even register as a person. It was more like a shape, dark, unmoving, centered in the square of light from their apartment. The kind of figure you assume is a coat rack or a trick of reflection until your brain catches up. Then it did. And once I saw the outline of a head tilt just slightly, I knew it wasn't furniture. The window across the alley was maybe 20 feet from mine. It belonged to the building opposite, an old brick complex just like mine, full of those narrow one-bedrooms that all seemed to share the same floor plan. The curtains on that window were open just enough that the light framed whoever was standing there. No movement, just staring. I remember actually waving, half a joke, half a test. The figure didn't move, not even a twitch. Something about that stillness got under my skin. It was too deliberate. Like whoever it was knew I was looking and wanted me to notice. I pulled my blinds shut after that. But even with them closed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how long they'd been standing there. Whether they were still there now. When I finally went to bed that night, I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe some old guy who couldn't sleep staring out at the rain. Maybe a mannequin. Cities are full of weird shit, right? That's what I told myself. Right until I woke up at 3:13 a.m. to a click. It was faint, like metal on metal. The sound came from the direction of my fire escape window. At first, I thought it was just the pipes. My building's heating system is ancient. But then it came again. This time, it was unmistakable. The sound of the latch moving. I froze. My apartment was dark except for the orange streetlight spilling in through the blinds. My heartbeat was so loud it drowned out everything else. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, opened the camera app, and pointed it toward the window without turning on the light. The screen showed nothing but the faint outline of the curtains still. I kept staring, waiting for any sign of movement. Nothing. After a minute, I convinced myself it had to be the wind or something outside shifting. I checked the latch. It was locked. I told myself I was paranoid and went back to bed. The next morning, everything looked normal. Sunlight, traffic, people walking their dogs below. I even laughed at myself while making coffee. The figure across the alley was gone. The window was empty. For the next few days, life went back to normal. But then the notes started appearing. The first one was just a folded piece of printer paper wedged under my door. No envelope, no name. On it, in small, careful handwriting, it said, "I like the way you leave your lamp on at night." That's it. No signature, no context, just that one line. I stood there in the hallway, heart pounding, looking at my neighbors' doors. It could have been anyone. There were 4 other apartments on my floor. I took a photo of the note and texted it to my friend Jamie. Me. Okay, tell me this isn't creepy. Jamie, where'd you find it? Me. Someone slipped it under my door. Jamie. You? Maybe it's like a prank. You do have that window facing the alley, right? That last message made me stop. I hadn't told her about the guy across the alley. Me. Yeah. Jamie. Maybe it's from him, lol. Maybe you have a secret admirer, Nee. Yeah, right. But that idea stuck in my head. Too much. That night, I decided to test it. I left my lamp off. At around 11:30 p.m., I peeked through the blinds. The opposite window was lit again. Soft yellow light spilling out, curtains still parted just enough. And there he was, the same dark figure standing in the same place. Except this time I realized something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't standing still. He was swaying. Slowly, rhythmically. Forward and back. Like someone listening to music no one else could hear. I watched for maybe 10 seconds before I had to look away. It felt like if I kept staring, something bad would happen, like I'd invite him to do more. I shut my blinds tight, checked the lock twice, and slept with my phone clutched in my hand. The second note came 2 days later. This time it was taped to the inside of my kitchen window. Inside, it said, "It's rude not to wave." I dropped it like it burned me. I didn't remember leaving the window unlocked. I didn't remember ever opening it, actually, but the tape was cleanly placed on the inside of the glass right at eye level. I called my landlord immediately. He brushed it off, said maybe a maintenance worker had entered by mistake, that the super might have left it without realizing how it looked. But when I went downstairs to ask the super myself, he looked confused, said he hadn't been in my unit in weeks. That night, I left every light on. I double-checked the door, the windows, the fire escape. I even shoved a chair under the doorknob. Still, when I tried to sleep, I could feel eyes on me. You ever get that? That crawling sense that someone's watching you, like a pressure behind your skull? I couldn't shake it. Around 2 a.m., I heard movement again, this time from across the alley. I got up, went to the window, and peeked through the blinds just a sliver. He was closer. I mean that literally. The figure in the opposite window was pressed right up against the glass, both hands flat against it, his head tilted at an angle that made my stomach twist. Even from across the alley, I could tell he was smiling, and when I saw his mouth move just slightly like he was whispering something, I stumbled back. It was the kind of primal fear that doesn't even make sense. You don't think about what to do. You just move. I turned on every light I could find, grabbed my phone, and called Jamie. She answered half asleep. "What's wrong?" I told her everything. The figure, the notes, the smile. She said, "Call the cops right now." But I didn't. I don't even know why. Maybe because I didn't want to sound crazy. Maybe because I thought it'd stop on its own if I ignored it. Instead, I closed the blinds, sat on the floor with my back to the wall, and waited for morning. When the sun came up, I finally checked again. The window across the alley was empty, curtains drawn, no sign of movement, and I almost let myself believe it was over, until I saw something new, a small piece of paper, taped to my window from the outside this time. I had to lean close to read it. Finally looked back. I didn't open the window. I couldn't. That note, finally looked back, was taped from the outside, which meant someone had climbed the fire escape while I was sleeping. I just stood there, staring at it through the glass, heart hammering so hard it hurt. The handwriting was the same as before, small, careful, like someone who took their time shaping every letter. I called my landlord again. No answer. Left a voicemail I immediately regretted because my voice was shaking the whole time. Then I called the police. They actually came, 2 officers mid-morning. Both looked like they'd seen this kind of thing 100 times. Nervous tenant, vague complaint, no real evidence. I showed them the note, told them about the figure across the alley, the noise, the first message under the door. They took it all in politely, nodding, writing on their pads. Then one of them asked, "Do you have any cameras?" "No," I said. "Security system?" "No." He sighed. "Without that, it's tough. Could be someone messing around. Maybe a delivery mix-up with that first note." "A delivery mix-up?" I snapped. "Someone taped a message to my window outside." He held up his hands. "I'm not saying it's okay, ma'am. I'm saying it's hard to prove who." The other one added, "We'll do a welfare check on the opposite building. See if anyone lives in the unit you mentioned." "Unit 302, I said, directly across from mine. They promised they'd get back to me. They didn't. For a few nights, nothing happened. I started leaving my blinds shut all the time. I'd go out of my way to avoid that window, even walking through the apartment in the dark to not attract attention. Jamie kept texting me to stay at her place, but I didn't want to give whoever it was the satisfaction of driving me out. That's what I told myself anyway. The truth was simpler. I didn't want to come back to find something worse waiting for me. Then on the fourth night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text said, "Don't hide. I can still see you." I dropped the phone. My hands went completely numb. For a second I couldn't move. Then I grabbed it again, screenshot it, and immediately texted Jamie. "Me. Got a message, Jamie." "From who?" "Me. IDK. No name. Just says they can see me." "Jamie, 911. Now." I did. This time the police took it more seriously. They sent another patrol car. The same officer from before came back, and I could tell by his face he hadn't expected to see me again so soon. He checked the fire escape, the door, the locks. Nothing broken. Nothing disturbed. "Could be someone spoofing a number," he said. "Harassment like this sometimes starts online. You got any social media accounts public?" I did. Instagram, TikTok, the usual. He told me to set them all to private, block unknown messages, change my passwords. I did it that night, hands trembling so bad I mistyped my password 5 times. When I finally finished, I looked up, and my blood went cold. The blinds were slightly open. I know I'd shut them. I remember twisting the rod until the slats clicked shut before sitting down at my desk. But now there was a tiny gap, just wide enough to see through. And in that gap, across the alley, light. The window opposite mine was glowing again, and someone was there. Except this time, the shape wasn't standing. It was sitting, motionless, right in the middle of the window frame, like a mannequin posed in a chair. Something about the way it sat, too upright, hands resting just out of view, felt wrong. I took a photo with my phone, zoomed in. You could barely make it out through the grain, but there was definitely a head. A face, maybe. The camera couldn't catch the eyes clearly, but I swear they were on me. I sent the photo to Jamie. Me. He's there again. Jamie, WTF. That looks like someone sitting. Me. Police said the apartment might be empty. Jamie. Empty? Me. Yeah. They were gonna check but never called back. She typed for a long time before sending. Jamie. I'm coming over. She showed up 20 minutes later, sweatshirt over pajamas, holding a flashlight like a weapon. The moment she saw the opposite window, her face went pale. "Are you kidding me?" she whispered. "That's not normal." We stood there together, watching. 10 minutes passed, nothing moved. Then Jamie said, "Let's see if that apartment's really empty." I hesitated, but she was already grabbing her phone and heading for the door. The buildings shared the same alley, connected by a short sidewalk at street level. You could walk from one to the other in less than a minute. I followed her, even though every part of me was screaming not to. The lobby of the opposite building smelled like dust and old carpet. The mailboxes were metal, most with names on the slots. Shotu's was blank. Jamie pressed the intercom button under 302. We waited. Nothing. She pressed again. Still nothing. Then, just as she turned to me to say something, a faint click echoed through the speaker. Not a voice. Just the sound of someone picking up the receiver. "Hello?" Jamie said, leaning closer. No answer. Just soft, static-filled breathing. Then the line went dead. She looked at me, eyes wide. "Okay, nope, we're leaving." We bolted out of the building and back into mine. When we got upstairs, I noticed something immediately. The light in the opposite window was off. Total darkness. Jamie stayed the night. We kept the lights on and took turns dozing off on the couch. Nothing else happened, at least not that night. But in the morning, when I went to make coffee, something caught my eye on the counter. A folded piece of paper. It hadn't been there before. I unfolded it slowly, praying it wasn't what I thought it was. It was. You shouldn't have brought someone else. That was the moment I lost it. I started shaking so hard I dropped the cup I was holding. It shattered across the tile. Jamie came running, grabbed the note, read it, and immediately said, "We're going to the cops right now." At the station, they took us more seriously this time. The same officer came in with a detective. I gave them everything, every note, the photo, the text message, the new one on my counter. They promised to contact the building manager for the address across the alley. Later that afternoon, the detective called me back. He said, "Ma'am, I just spoke to the property owner of that unit. 302's been vacant for 6 months." I didn't say anything for a while. My mouth went dry. He continued, "They changed the locks 2 months ago. There shouldn't be anyone inside." My voice barely came out. "Then who's in there?" "We're sending someone to check it now," he said. "We'll let you know what they find." I waited all night for that call. It never came. At 3:42 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. Unknown number again. The message said, "You shouldn't have told them." Then another one, immediately after. "You look better in the dark." I didn't even realize I'd moved until I found myself standing at the window. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely pull the blinds apart. The opposite window was dark again, until my phone lit up with one last message. "Look." And the light flicked on across the alley. Slowly, the curtains parted. And there he was, standing again, perfectly still, facing me. But this time, I could see his face. It wasn't what I expected. He looked normal, ordinary, mid-30s maybe, pale, dark hair. But his eyes didn't blink. They just locked on mine, like he'd been waiting for me to finally see him properly. Then he raised his hand and pressed something flat and white against the glass. A note. Even from across the alley, I could read it. Smile. The light went out. I didn't sleep again after that. Not that night. Not the next. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, lit by that dim yellow light staring straight at me with that dead, steady calm. No smile this time. No expression at all. Just watching. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I was moving out. I didn't care about the deposit. Didn't care that I'd only been in this place for 6 months. I just wanted out. I called the landlord, left another voicemail. Then I started packing, but halfway through my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I didn't want to look. I really didn't, but of course I did. Leaving already? I dropped the phone and backed away like it was something alive. I turned toward the window. The blinds were closed, but I could feel him there, across the alley, watching, maybe even smiling again. I called the detective right then. No voicemail this time. I didn't care how crazy I sounded. He answered on the third ring. "This is Detective Alvarez." "It's him," I said, voice shaking. "He's still there." He texted me again. There was a pause. Then, "Can you come down to the station right now?" "Why, what's going on?" "We checked that apartment last night," he said. "We didn't find anyone, but we did find something you should see." The photo he showed me was printed on regular office paper. It was grainy, taken from a body cam. The image showed the empty apartment across the alley, bare walls, dusty floor, single lamp sitting on the windowsill, and then, in the corner of the frame near the radiator, a small pile of something I couldn't identify. I leaned closer. It was a stack of Polaroids. Each one showed my apartment window, different angles, different times of day. Me cooking, me sitting at my desk, me asleep on the couch, my stomach turned to ice. There were dozens, Alvarez said, all taken from that same window. "We're still dusting for prints." I just stared at the photos. I didn't even realize I was whispering until he leaned in to hear. "He was in there," I said. "He was actually living there." "That's what we're trying to determine," he said. "But here's the thing, there's no furniture, no food, no bedding, just the lamp and those photos." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense. Someone had to be staying there." He hesitated, then added, "We also found a chair by the window. Old metal one scraped on the floor like it was dragged back and forth. Looked like someone spent a lot of time sitting there. My throat went dry. Watching. He nodded. They offered to send a patrol car to sit outside my building for a few nights. I said yes, it helped at first. I slept a little. I even opened my blinds halfway one morning just to prove to myself I wasn't afraid anymore. But the feeling didn't go away. That crawling unseen pressure, like the walls themselves were listening. 2 nights later I heard a knock. Soft, deliberate, not on my door, on the window. 3 slow taps. I froze. The patrol car was still parked out front. I'd seen it when I got home. Whoever this was had to be insane to try anything with cops outside. I grabbed my phone and recorded. Slowly, I crept toward the window. The blinds were still mostly shut, but I could see faint movement, shadows shifting behind them. Another knock. Louder this time, I yanked the cord and the blinds snapped open. Nothing. The alley was empty. The opposite window was dark. But then my eyes adjusted and I realized the sound hadn't come from the outside. It had come from inside, from the other window. The one by the fire escape, the one I'd checked 100 times before. There was someone standing there. A reflection of my own window light glinted off the glass. But I could see the shape clear enough, tall, lean, a shadow framed by the dim orange of the streetlight. They didn't move. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy candle holder, and took a step forward. Who's there? No answer. Then slowly the figure leaned closer until its face was almost against the glass. And I recognized the eyes, same as before, same person. Except now, he wasn't across the alley. He was on my fire escape. I screamed and stumbled backward, knocking over the lamp. The crash must have scared him off because by the time I looked again, he was gone. I called the cops again, sobbing. Within minutes, the 2 officers from the patrol car were at my door. They searched the fire escape. The roof, the stairwell, nothing. They told me the alley was clear. No sign of anyone, I kept insisting. He was there, I saw him. He was right there. They exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. One of them said gently, "Ma'am, we've been parked right outside all night. No one's gone near your building." That made me stop, because that couldn't be true. Unless he hadn't come from outside. The next morning, I packed everything I could fit into 2 suitcases. Jamie was coming with her car to get me out of there, but while I was waiting for her, I decided to do one last thing. I wanted proof. Something real. Something no one could deny. So I bought a cheap motion camera from the hardware store downstairs and set it up facing the window. It synced to an app on my phone. If anything moved while I was gone, I'd know. Jamie picked me up that afternoon. I stayed at her place, locked doors, lights on. Barely talking. Around 2 a.m., the app sent a notification. Motion detected. My stomach twisted. I opened the feed. The image was dark. Grainy, but clear enough. The camera was still facing the window. The blinds were closed. Then slowly one slat lifted. A hand, thin, first slid through the gap. It moved slowly. Like someone savoring it, tracing along the sill, fingertips brushing the glass. Then it stopped. And another hand joined it. Both pressed flat against the window from inside. The feed cut out. I don't remember the next few minutes clearly. Jamie said I just started screaming. She called 911. By the time the police arrived at my apartment again, whoever it was had vanished. The camera had been smashed, but they found something else, under the window. In the dust behind the radiator, there was a small, folded piece of paper. "You shouldn't have left me alone." They dusted it for prints. None. At that point, I didn't even care what they found. I was done. I moved out that same week. Jamie helped me haul my boxes into storage until I could find a new place. Every time I closed a door past a window, my body would tense automatically. I started sleeping with the blinds taped shut. Even at her apartment. For a few days, nothing happened. Then one morning, Jamie walked into the kitchen holding her phone, face pale. "You need to see this," she said. She showed me a message request on Instagram from a blank account. No profile picture, no posts. The message said, "Miss you." She stared at me. "Did you tell anyone where I live?" "No," I whispered. "No one." She deleted the message. We both tried to laugh it off, but that night I dreamed about the window. The yellow light. The chair. and when I woke up, my heart was pounding because for a split second I could have sworn I heard it. 3 soft taps on glass, from somewhere down the hall. Jamie tried to hide it, but I could tell she was scared of me. Not for me, of me. After the message showed up, everything changed between us. She stopped leaving me alone in the apartment, but she also stopped looking me in the eye. Whenever I said I heard something, footsteps, knocks, breathing, she'd tense up, force a smile, and say, "It's nothing. You're safe here." But I could tell she didn't believe it either. The truth is, I didn't even trust myself anymore. I started hearing my name whispered late at night. Not clearly, more like a voice on the edge of sleep, soft and close to my ear. Sometimes I'd sit up in bed and swear I saw a shape just outside the door watching. But when I turned on the light, it would be gone. It got to the point where I couldn't tell what was real. I'd catch myself staring at the blinds for minutes, waiting for them to move. Waiting for him. One night, Jamie found me standing by her living room window, just watching. She said I'd been there for almost an hour, not moving. I didn't even remember getting up. 2 days later, she told me I needed help. A therapist, maybe. Someone to talk to. I wanted to argue, but I didn't have the energy. I hadn't slept properly in weeks. That evening, she left to run errands. I promised I'd lock up and rest. It was supposed to be an ordinary night. Quiet. Safe. But around midnight, my phone buzzed again. A new message. No number. No contact name. Just a blank notification that read, "Turn around." My chest went tight. I didn't want to, but my body moved on its own. Behind me, the blinds were trembling, very slightly, as if touched by a faint breeze. Except the window was shut. I took one cautious step closer. The shaking stopped. The air felt thicker somehow, like the silence had weight. And then I saw it. A faint smudge on the glass. Not outside. Inside. I leaned closer and realized what it was. A fingerprint. Then another. Then another. They formed 2 handprints, side by side just above the latch. Fresh. Oily. Human. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. I grabbed my phone to call Jamie, but before I could, the screen lit up again, a photo. Sent from an unknown number. It was a shot of me, standing by the window. The angle was from behind. My stomach dropped. Someone had taken it seconds ago. I ran through the apartment, checking every door, every window, every closet, nothing. No one. I went back to the phone, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I typed, "Who are you?" and hit send. No response. Then, just as I was about to call the police again, another message came in. "You look better from this angle." Attached was another photo. Me, sitting on the couch now. I hadn't even sat down yet. I didn't remember getting there. Didn't remember turning around. Didn't remember lowering myself onto the cushions. But when I looked up, I was sitting exactly like in the photo, every muscle in my body locked up. That's when the tapping started. Again, soft, slow. 3 knocks, the window this time. Wasn't across the alley, it was the same one as before. The one I'd been avoiding since I moved in. Except I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was at Jamie's, and this wasn't supposed to happen here. I forced myself to turn. Inch by inch, the blinds were open, just a crack. A thin slice of orange streetlight spilled across the floor, and behind that glow, a shape, standing perfectly still, not outside, inside, right next to the window. For a second, I thought it was my reflection, but the timing was wrong. It didn't move when I did. It just stood there, slightly tilted, head cocked like it was studying me. Then slowly it lifted its hand and pointed. At me. I screamed. I don't remember much after that. Just chaos. Jamie bursting through the door, lights flicking on. Me sobbing, shaking, pointing at the window. But when she looked, it was empty. No shape. No one there. The next morning she made me leave. Said she couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't blame her. I checked into a motel that same day, one of those cheap ones near the highway. All fluorescent lights and cigarette burns on the curtains. The walls were thin. I could hear the person next door coughing, pacing, flushing the toilet. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could finally rest. That night, I left the blinds open. On purpose. I needed to prove to myself that no one was watching. Hours passed. Nothing happened. I almost fell asleep sitting up. Then, just before dawn, Someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. I froze. "Front desk?" I called out, voice barely a whisper. No answer. I got up and looked through the peephole, empty hallway. But when I turned back to the room, my blood ran cold. The blinds were closed, I hadn't touched them. And on the inside of the window, pressed against the glass, was a piece of paper, white, handwritten. I stepped closer. Heart in my throat, it said, "Missed you." The police came again. They searched the room, the hallway, even checked the security footage. No one had entered or left my room all night. The detective didn't say it, but I could tell by the look in his eyes. He thought I'd done it myself. Maybe I wanted attention. Maybe I'd lost it, and maybe I had. Because now, even when I'm not near a window, I feel him. At the grocery store, in the reflection of the freezer doors, in the mirror above the sink, in the black of my phone screen when it goes dark, always there, just at the edge, waiting for me to look back. I moved again last month. Different city this time. No one knows where I am. No social media, no forwarding address. But the second night here, I woke up to a faint light shining through the blinds, yellow, soft, familiar. It was coming from across the street. I told myself not to look. I really did. But after a few minutes, I couldn't help it. I peeked, and there it was, a window, half-covered curtains, a single lamp sitting on the sill, and someone, standing perfectly still, facing me, just watching. No note this time. No message. Just that same unbearable stillness. I closed the blinds and sat on the floor, shaking. It's been hours now. I'm writing this with the lights off, pretending I'm asleep, because I can feel it again. The weight of eyes through the wall, through the dark. He's patient. He always was, and I think I finally understand what all those notes meant. He never wanted me gone. He wanted me to see him, and now I can't stop. The first time I saw the footage, I honestly thought it was a joke. It was late, maybe 1:30 in the morning, and I was sitting at my kitchen table, half asleep, reviewing clips from my trail cameras. I'd set them up about a month earlier near my cabin in northern Montana, hoping to capture footage of elk or maybe a black bear for my YouTube channel. But what I saw that night wasn't an animal. It was me. Just me. Sitting by my own campfire, eating canned beans out of a pot, completely unaware that a camera was pointed at me from somewhere in the trees. The camera angle wasn't one of mine. The timestamp wasn't one I recognized. And I swear on my life, I didn't remember ever putting a camera there. At first I laughed. Thought maybe a hunter found one of my cameras, moved it, and was pulling a prank. But when I checked the GPS metadata on the file, my stomach dropped. It was recorded 2 miles from where I'd left that unit. Someone had moved it. The next morning, I hiked back out to the site to see for myself. It was freezing cold, the kind of sharp mountain air that cuts straight through your jacket. My boots crunched over frost and old pine needles. When I reached the clearing, my trail cam was still strapped to the tree. But the angle was wrong. It wasn't facing the animal trail anymore. It was turned toward where I usually set up my tent, dead center. I took it down and checked the memory card on my phone. There were 37 new clips. Every single one of them was of me. Me cooking, sleeping, walking to the creek. Even one of me just sitting on a log, staring into space. The strangest part? I was never looking at the camera. No matter what I was doing, I was always facing away. Like whoever was filming knew exactly where I wouldn't see it. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat as I scrolled through the files. The most recent one was time-stamped from last night. That didn't make sense. I hadn't been there since last weekend. Then I noticed something else. There were footsteps visible in the edge of the frame. Heavy, slow, moving closer to my tent. But whoever it was never appeared fully on camera. Just boots. Just the bottom of their jeans, and a shadow that fell across the tent zipper. Then the video cut out. I packed up the camera and practically jogged back to my cabin. It's a small, one-room place I bought cheap from a guy who used it for hunting in the 80s. Old wood stove, propane lights, and a wraparound porch that creaks if you breathe too hard. I locked the door the second I got inside, even though no one's supposed to be out there for miles. I kept telling myself it was probably a mistake. Maybe another hiker messing with my setup. But my gut said otherwise. I decided to check the other trail cams just in case. By nightfall, I'd pulled all 6 of them. Every one of them had been moved. Not by much, just 10, 20 feet, but always in a new direction. Always aimed at spots where I had been before. And on each card, I found clips of myself. Eating, walking, sleeping. Sometimes from so far away it looked like I didn't even know the camera existed. Other times, close enough that I could see the steam of my breath. One clip, I'll never forget it, showed me in my sleeping bag, chest rising and falling. Then from the edge of the frame, something started moving closer. A hand, bare, dirty, crawling across the pine needles toward me. I stopped watching after that. That night, I couldn't sleep. The woods outside were silent, no wind, no crickets, nothing. Just that heavy mountain quiet that makes your ears ring. Every sound made me flinch. Every creak of the cabin floorboard sounded like footsteps. At one point, I thought I heard something scraping across the porch. I killed the lantern and waited. A minute passed. Then another, and then, faintly, I heard the sound of something brushing against the siding, like a hand dragging along the wall, slow, deliberate. I picked up my flashlight and aimed it toward the window. Nothing. Then, from outside, tap, 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 3 knocks. Right against the glass, I froze. Didn't move, didn't breathe. After maybe 10 seconds, I finally turned the light on. The window was empty, but on the outside, just above where the wood met the pane, were 3 wet fingerprints. By sunrise, I'd decided to leave. I packed up my stuff, loaded the cameras, and drove the long dirt road back toward town. Halfway down, I stopped at a ranger station to report what happened. The ranger, an older guy with sun-creased skin and a thick gray beard, didn't even blink when I told him. "Trail cams getting moved?" he said. "Happens more than you'd think. Bears sometimes, or people who live out there." "People?" I asked. He shrugged. "You'd be surprised how many folks go off-grid out here. Hermits, squatters, the occasional survivalist who doesn't want company." "Do they usually film other people?" He looked up at that. "You saying someone filmed you?" I showed him one of the clips on my phone. The one with the hand crawling toward my tent. His face changed. "Where'd you say this was taken?" he asked quietly. I pointed it out on a topographic map pinned to the wall. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're about 4 miles east of the old ranger cabins. There used to be a guy living out that way. We found his camp years ago. A lot of weird stuff in it." "Weird how?" He hesitated. "Journals. Polaroids. He'd been taking pictures of campers without them knowing. Some of the photos went back decades." I felt sick. "What happened to him?" "Never caught him," the ranger said. "Just stopped showing up. We figured he moved on or froze one winter." "Or didn't," I muttered. He looked at me hard. "You should probably stay somewhere else for a while." I did. I rented a room at a small roadside motel for the next few nights, just until I could figure out what to do with the footage. The first night there, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the timestamps, the missing hours. So I checked the files again, and that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. In one of the clips, taken maybe 2 weeks ago, I was sitting by my fire. The same one as before, but in the corner of the frame, behind me, barely visible through the trees, was another camera, not mine, mounted higher, pointing straight down at me. The lens glinted when the firelight hit it. And the worst part? It wasn't attached to a tree. It was on a shoulder. Whoever had been filming me was holding it. I turned the motel TV up just to drown out the silence. Tried to convince myself it was an old file, some mix-up, but deep down I knew someone had been following me, setting my own cameras back up after I left, watching me watch myself. At some point I must have dozed off with the laptop still open. The last video paused on my own face. When I woke up, the room was pitch black except for the blue glow of the screen. I glanced at the clock, 3:12 a.m. Then, from outside the window I heard it, a faint click like the shutter of a camera. That click outside my motel window still echoes in my head. At first I thought it was just the pipes or a car door slamming somewhere down the highway, but then I heard another sound. So faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it, a low shuffle, like someone shifting their weight just beneath the window. I froze. My laptop was still open, casting a dull blue glow across the room. The blinds were drawn, but there was a sliver between the panels just wide enough for me to see a few inches of gravel outside. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, maybe. Stupidity. But I leaned closer and peeked through the gap. At first, I didn't see anything. Just the orange wash of the parking lot lights and the outline of my truck parked a few feet away. Then, in the reflection of my side mirror, I saw it. A shape. Tall. Still. Facing my window. It wasn't moving, but I could feel it watching me. I blinked once and it was gone, just gone, but the feeling stayed. That prickling at the back of my neck, that deep animal knowing that something's wrong. I didn't sleep again that night. When the sun came up, I checked the outside of my window. There were footprints in the gravel, bare ones. Long, thin, pressed deep into the dirt. I told the motel clerk, a woman in her 50s with thick glasses and a cigarette voice. She looked at me like she'd heard this before. "You camping folks spook easy," she said. "Ain't nothing out there but coyotes." I wanted to argue, but I didn't have the energy. I drove into town, bought a padlock for the cabin, and picked up some coffee just to have something normal to hold on to. The kid behind the counter asked if I was the guy who filmed bears on YouTube. I said, "Yeah, that was me." He grinned and said, "You got some new videos up, right?" My buddy showed me one last night. Creepy as hell, I froze mid-sip. "What video?" "The one with you sleeping in your tent," he said. "The camera zooms in and then you wake up. It's like a horror short, man. Realistic as hell." I nearly dropped the cup. I hadn't uploaded anything in weeks. "Where'd you see it?" I asked. He pulled out his phone, scrolling. "Can't find it now, weird. Maybe it got deleted or something." But the look in his eyes told me he wasn't lying. Someone had taken my footage and posted it. By the time I got back to the cabin that afternoon, the sky was gray and heavy with snow. I stood there for a long time before going in. The woods were dead quiet. Even the wind had stopped. When I finally unlocked the door, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Damp, metallic. Like old pennies and wet dirt. I stepped inside and froze. There were muddy footprints across the floor. Human. I followed them to the corner of the cabin, where they stopped, right in front of my bed. The blanket was folded back slightly, as if someone had been lying there, and sitting on the pillow was one of my trail cameras turned on. Red light blinking. Recording. I grabbed it and ripped the SD card out, then checked every corner of the cabin. Nothing else was disturbed. My laptop was still on the table, my food supplies untouched, but the air felt used, like someone had just left. I sat down on the floor, shaking, and plugged the card into my laptop. The first few clips were just static, blurry shapes moving in darkness. Then the angle shifted, and I realized it was filmed from inside my cabin. The camera had been placed low, aimed at me as I slept. In the footage, I'm on my side, mouth slightly open, breathing slow. The lantern flickers on the table. After maybe 30 seconds, the image shifts. Someone steps into frame. A man, barefoot, shirtless, his skin gray with dirt. He's standing over me. Motionless, and then slowly he crouches down until his face is inches from mine. He stays there for almost 2 minutes, just breathing. When he finally moves, he looks straight into the camera and smiles. Not big. Just enough to make my stomach twist. Then the video cuts out. I don't remember packing the truck. I just remember the crunch of the gravel as I tore down the road, going way too fast for those switchback turns. I didn't stop until I hit cell service. Then I called the sheriff's office. A deputy met me at a gas station about 40 minutes later. Big guy, maybe mid-40s, polite but skeptical. "You saying somebody broke into your cabin?" "Yeah," I said, my voice shaking. "And they filmed me. I've got proof." I showed him the video. He watched it once, expression unreadable. Then he said, "You sure this ain't one of your own recordings?" I almost laughed. "You think I'd stage that?" He shrugged. "You'd be surprised what folks post online these days." I didn't post it. Somebody else did. They're out there following me. He nodded slowly. "We'll send someone up to check the property." "You got a place to stay tonight?" "Yeah," I said automatically. I didn't, but I wasn't going back there. That night, I parked my truck on a turnout about a mile outside town and tried to sleep in the back seat. I figured I'd wait for daylight before finding a new place. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number, just a photo. It was me, asleep in my truck, taken from the passenger side window. I sat bolt upright, scanning the darkness. The road was empty. Snow drifted softly across the headlights. My heart was going so fast I thought I might pass out. Then another message came through. You left something behind. Attached was another photo, one of my cameras, lying in the dirt beside my cabin door. The timestamp said 5 minutes ago. That was impossible. My cabin was 40 miles away unless whoever it was had more than one. Unless they were still out there. Still watching. I started the engine and drove until sunrise, until the mountains flattened out into empty plains. I checked into another motel, this one next to a truck stop. It was noisy, fluorescent, crowded, the exact opposite of the woods. I told myself I'd be safe here. But later that morning, when I turned on the local news, there was a story about a missing hiker, last seen camping near the same area where my cabin was. The reporter said authorities found his tent torn apart, his food untouched, his car still parked a few miles away. Then they showed a photo of his campsite, and in the background, nailed to a tree, barely visible but unmistakable, was one of my trail cameras. The one I'd left behind, the one still recording. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what the man in the video looked like. His skin wasn't just dirty, it was wrong. Pale gray, stretched too tight across his jaw. His eyes looked glassy, like they'd dried out, and that smile, thin, strained, like his face didn't quite remember how to do it. I kept replaying that moment in my head. The way he leaned over me, breathing like he was trying to sync his rhythm with mine. I didn't know if he was alive, or something pretending to be. But I knew he wasn't done with me yet. Because when I tried to fall asleep, the room phone rang once, just a single chime, and stopped. When I checked the display, it read, "Call from cabin line." I didn't want to go back there. Every bone in my body said to drive the other direction and never look over my shoulder again. But when the sheriff's office called 2 days later, they gave me a reason I couldn't ignore. They'd found something. "Your cabin door was wide open," the deputy said. "We took a look inside. You're gonna want to see this yourself." I almost told him no. But curiosity, the same damn thing that got me out into those woods in the first place, dragged me back. The drive took nearly 3 hours. The closer I got to the mountains, the worse the air felt. The light seemed thinner somehow. Everything looked faded, like the forest was holding its breath. 2 cruisers were parked outside my cabin when I arrived. A deputy was standing on the porch, notebook in hand, face pale. "You're the photographer?" he asked when he saw me. "Yeah." He didn't say anything for a few seconds, just looked past me at the trees, scanning. Then he gestured for me to follow. Inside, the place was cold and silent. The air smelled like mold and something sour, like meat left out too long. I stepped in and immediately froze. The walls were covered with photos, hundreds of them, all printed on glossy paper, pinned up with nails, overlapping edge to edge. Every single photo was of me. Sleeping, eating, brushing my teeth, tying my boots, standing outside looking at the trees. Some were so close up they caught the pores on my skin. Others were from far away, grainy, zoomed, taken through branches. The deputy swallowed hard. "We found a stash of SD cards in the crawl space. Some labeled with your name. Others just have dates. Where's the guy who did this?" I managed to say. He hesitated. "We didn't find anyone." "Then whose photos are these?" He shifted uncomfortably. "That's not the only thing we found." He led me to the back of the cabin. There, sitting neatly in the middle of the floor, was a trail camera, one of mine, but someone had scratched a word into the plastic casing. Mine. The lens was cracked, but the red light was still blinking. Recording. The deputies took the equipment and told me to stay somewhere else until they finished the investigation. That night, I got a call from one of them, Henderson, the younger one. His voice was shaking. "We checked the footage on that camera," he said. "It was recording for the last few nights." "And?" "It's all you," he said. "You walking around the woods, sitting by your fire, sleeping." "I haven't been out there," I said. "I know," he whispered. That's the problem. He sent me one of the clips. The timestamp was from last night. In it, I'm standing at the edge of my cabin's clearing, staring straight into the lens, except it's not me. It's someone wearing my same clothes, same jacket, same hat, but the way he moved wasn't right. Stiff, mechanical. He turns his head just slightly, and the light catches his face. It looks almost like mine, but the features are just off enough to make my skin crawl, eyes too wide. Mouth stretched a little too thin. Then he reaches toward the camera and covers it with his hand. The screen goes black. I called the sheriff's office back immediately. Henderson didn't answer. The next morning, I drove into town and walked straight into the station. The front desk deputy looked confused when I asked for him. "Henderson?" she said. "He's on leave. Took off early this morning. Did he say where he was going?" "No, just left a note." She handed me a slip of paper. Scrawled across it in shaky handwriting were 3 words. "He's still filming. I should have left then." Packed up, sold the cabin, deleted every file I'd ever taken. But I needed to see it through. I drove back to the ranger station. The same old man I'd spoken to before was sitting on the porch, cleaning a rifle. When I told him what was happening, he didn't even look surprised. "Some things out there don't stay buried," he said quietly. "You start watching the woods long enough, the woods start watching you back." "What the hell does that mean?" He sighed, leaned back. "They're stories. Hunters disappearing. Hikers turning up miles from where they should be. Always with cameras, always seeing themselves before they go missing. I didn't want folklore. I wanted facts. So I asked where the old ranger cabins were, the ones he'd mentioned before. He told me, and I went. The trail was overgrown, barely recognizable, but after about an hour, I saw the first collapsed roof through the trees. The air there felt heavier, colder, like it belonged to a different season. I found 3 cabins in total. The first 2 were empty, just rot and raccoon droppings. The third one, though, the door was open. Inside, the walls were covered with more photographs. All of them decades old, faded to yellow. Different people this time, campers, hunters, hikers. Every face was the same expression. Neutral. Caught off guard. There were Polaroids, 2. Some so old they'd started to peel. And in the center of the room was a table with dozens of camera parts, lenses, wires, circuit boards. Someone had been building cameras here, hundreds of them. A notebook sat open among the parts. I flipped through it, my stomach churning. Every page was filled with numbers, dates, coordinates, exposure settings, and drawings of faces. One entry, written shakily near the back, stopped me cold. "He learns faster when I film him. The more I record, the closer he looks. Then below that, he wears me now." I dropped the notebook and backed away. The air inside the cabin had gone still, and somewhere above me a floorboard creaked. I turned my flashlight upward. Nothing. Just dust floating in the beam, but when I stepped outside, I noticed something that made my chest tighten. Fresh footprints in the mud, bare feet, leading away from the cabin. I followed them, because of course, I did. Through the trees until I reached a clearing, and there, nailed to a pine, was another one of my trail cameras. The red light blinking, recording. I pulled the card and checked the footage right there on my phone. The clip started with the empty clearing, sunlight filtering through the trees. Then slowly, a figure stepped into frame. It was me, but not from today. It was the exact same footage from the first video I'd found, the one where I'm sitting by the fire. Only now, something new appeared in the background. Behind my tent, half hidden by the trees, stood another figure, watching. The shape moved closer to the lens until its face filled the frame, and it was wearing my face. Then the video ended. I don't remember running back to the truck. I don't even remember driving away. I just remember the sound of gravel under the tires and my own breathing. Ragged and panicked, when I finally stopped at a rest area an hour later, my phone buzzed with a notification. New upload, from my own YouTube channel. The thumbnail was a still image of my cabin. The title, Live Feed, the Trail Camera. I clicked it before I could think. It was a live stream, showing the inside of my cabin, empty. Then, after a few seconds, someone walked into frame. Not me, but close enough to make my heart stop. He looked directly into the camera and smiled. Then he said, in my own voice, "He's watching you too." I haven't told anyone about the live stream. Not the police. Not my family. Not the Rangers, because I'm not even sure what I saw was real. That night, after the man on the stream spoke in my voice, the feed cut to black. Then it restarted. Same camera angle, same room. Only now the door to my cabin was open, and someone or something was standing in the doorway just out of focus. I tried to end the stream, but I couldn't. It wasn't hosted through my account anymore. My credentials didn't even work. It said the owner of the channel was the original feed. I closed my laptop and sat there in the motel room, shaking. I could still hear his voice in my head. He's watching you too. I didn't sleep that night. Or the one after. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of static, flickering images of myself, angles I'd never seen before. Like I was on a dozen cameras all at once. 2 days later, the ranger called me. The old man with the beard. "I think you should come back," he said. "Why?" "There's something you need to see." I told him I wasn't going anywhere near those woods again. He sighed. "You're already near them," he said quietly. "Ain't you noticed?" I looked out the motel window. He was right. I'd picked a place at the edge of town. Trees just a few hundred yards behind the parking lot. That night, the woods looked different, darker, heavier, like the line between them and me was thinning. By the next morning, curiosity had eaten through my fear again. I packed up, drove back out, and met him at the ranger station. He didn't speak much, just handed me a brown envelope. Inside were photos, old ones, black and white, some cracked and curling at the edges. Each one showed a man standing in the forest, holding a camera, different decades. Different cameras, but the same man, same face, same expression, watching whoever took the photo. "This one's from the 50s, the ranger said, pointing. "And this here's from 89, you tell me how that's possible." My stomach dropped. It was the same face. The same faint smile. The same eyes. I flipped to the last photo. It was taken recently, maybe weeks ago. The man was standing behind my cabin, behind me, and he was holding one of my cameras. The ranger leaned forward. "There's an old story about that thing," he said. "Folks used to call it the mirror man. Shows up when you start filming the woods too long. Likes to wear faces." "That's not possible," I said. "You're telling me it's some kind of ghost?" He shook his head. "Not a ghost, a copy. Something that lives in the space between seeing and being seen." He looked me dead in the eye. "And now it's seen you." I left before he could say another word. When I got back to the motel, my door was unlocked. Inside, everything looked the same except for the smell. Damp, metallic, familiar. My camera bag was open on the bed, and sitting on top of it was my trail cam, red light blinking, recording. I tore it apart, yanked out the SD card and jammed it into my laptop. The clip showed my motel room. Empty. Then the camera tilted, slowly, toward the bathroom door. It was closed. Something moved behind it, just a faint shift of shadow. Then the door creaked open inch by inch, and there I was, standing inside, staring right into the lens. I slammed the laptop shut so hard it cracked. When I looked up, the bathroom door in my room was half open, exactly like in the video. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear. I picked up the camera and threw it against the wall. It shattered, but the red light kept blinking. I ran out to the truck and didn't stop driving until the sun started coming up. I didn't even know where I was going. At some point, I pulled off onto a dirt road and parked in an open field. Just sat there trying to breathe. No cameras, no screens, no reflection except the windshield. The silence was almost enough to make me believe it was over. Then I noticed something glinting in the grass ahead of me. I got out, heart in my throat. It was a camera, not mine, older, rusted, the kind with a hand crank and a cracked lens. And sitting next to it, half buried in the dirt, was a roll of undeveloped film. On the casing, someone had carved a single word, "returned." I brought the film to a photo lab in town. The guy behind the counter gave me a look when he saw how old it was. "Might take a few hours," he said. When I went back to pick it up, he was pale. "These are yours?" he asked, sliding the envelope across the counter. Inside were 7 developed photos. Every one of them was me, standing in different places, my cabin, the trail, the motel parking lot, each from an angle that didn't exist. And in the last photo, I wasn't alone. Behind me, almost touching my shoulder, was that same man, the one with my face. I didn't go back to the cabin after that. Sold the land, deleted my channel, threw out every camera I owned, but it didn't help. Now every few weeks I'll get an email from an unknown address. No text, no subject line, just a photo attachment, always of me, sometimes sitting in my kitchen, sometimes walking home from work, all of them taken from behind. And if you look closely just over my shoulder, you can see him out of focus, always there, holding the camera, the red light blinking. I don't film anymore. I don't take photos, don't look at mirrors, don't go near windows after dark. But lately, I've been catching something strange on my phone screen. When I open the camera by accident, even in daylight, there's a faint static distortion for the first few seconds, like the lens is adjusting. Sometimes for a split second, I see another version of myself standing a few feet behind me, sometimes smiling, always watching. Last night, I woke up to the sound of a click. It came from my nightstand. When I turned on the light, my phone camera was open, recording. The screen showed me lying in bed. Then slowly the perspective shifted as if the camera were being lifted by someone else. And right before the feed cut to black, I heard my own voice whisper, "Stay still. It looks better when you're not moving." The first time I found the journal, I thought it was just part of the house. Old, forgotten, and harmless, but now, sitting here with every light on, listening to the faint creak of the hallway floorboards, I know better. Something's wrong with this place. It started 3 nights after we moved in. Our new house was the kind you see in family commercials. Picket fence, maple tree out front, big windows that made everything look soft in the evening light. It felt like a reset. My wife Lauren said we finally had breathing room. That night, though, the air didn't feel like it wanted to be breathed. It felt stale, thick, like the house was holding its breath. I was on the floor of the living room pulling up an old vent cover to clean it before installing a new one. When I stuck my hand in to clear the dust, my fingers brushed something hard. I thought it was a loose piece of ductwork, but when I pulled it out, it was a small leather-bound notebook. The cover was cracked and dark with age. No title, just faint indentations from being handled too much. The edges were yellowed, and the paper smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic, like old blood. Lauren was upstairs unpacking, humming softly to herself. I should have called her down. I should have told her what I found. But instead I sat there on the floor, the vent open, the smell of dust filling the air, and I opened it. The handwriting was neat but rushed, slanted slightly to the right. The first page started like this. June 3rd. They left the kitchen window open again. She made spaghetti. He didn't eat much. She cried later when she thought he couldn't hear. I frowned. There was no name, no introduction, just observation. The next entry, June 4th. He went into the garage at 10:12 p.m., stayed for 46 minutes. She didn't follow. She pretended to sleep. And then, June 5th. They don't see me yet. I felt a chill climb my spine. Who was this about? The dates were from 6 years ago, long before we'd moved in. Probably about the previous owners. Still creepy, but maybe it was just some weird neighbor who liked to write about people. I closed the notebook and shoved it aside, trying to laugh it off. But when I turned to get the new vent cover, I realized something that made my stomach knot. The entry said the kitchen window had been left open. When I glanced toward the kitchen now, the window was open just a few inches. We hadn't touched it since moving in. That night, I didn't tell Lauren. She was so happy about the house, and I didn't want to ruin it. We went to bed early, the window open for the cool air. I lay awake listening to the sounds outside, the faint chirping, a car passing far off, and something else. A slow, rhythmic creak, like someone walking across the porch boards. I sat up. The sound stopped. I told myself it was the wood settling, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was timed, measured, almost deliberate. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed I was standing in the living room staring at the vent. Only this time the notebook wasn't inside it. A hand was, and it was writing. The next morning I went downstairs half expecting the notebook to be gone. But it was still there, sitting on the counter where I'd left it. Except, it wasn't closed, it was open to a new page. June 6th, he found me. I froze. The penmanship was the same. The ink was darker, still wet in places. I grabbed a napkin and dabbed at one of the lines. The ink smudged. Lauren came down yawning, wrapped in her robe. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," I said too quickly, slamming it shut. She laughed. "You're acting weird." "Is it another spider?" "Something like that," I muttered. I shoved the journal into the drawer under the microwave. I told myself it was some leftover prank, maybe a kid's creepy creative writing thing, but all day I couldn't stop thinking about it. Who wrote "He found me"? And when that night Lauren fell asleep first, I stayed up scrolling through my phone, pretending not to be on edge. Around 2 a.m., I heard something that made me sit upright. It came from the kitchen. 3 sharp knocks like someone tapping the counter with their knuckles. I waited, listened. Then it happened again. 3 knocks. Then silence. I crept downstairs. The air felt colder than before. My breath fogged slightly in the dim light from the microwave clock. The drawer with the journal was open, just an inch. My chest tightened. I reached out, slowly pulled it open. The journal lay there, open to another fresh page. The ink shimmered faintly under the light. June 7th. He walks quieter now, but I still hear him. I slammed the drawer shut, my heart pounding. That's when I heard it. A soft exhale behind me, like someone had just sighed. I spun around, nothing. Just the dark outline of the living room and the faint hum of the fridge. Still, I felt watched. Not the kind of paranoia you can talk yourself out of, the kind that's earned. I went back upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and lay awake until sunrise. The next day, Lauren noticed the drawer. "Did you go through the kitchen again?" she asked while pouring coffee. "Why?" "It was open this morning. Like, wide open. You probably left it, right?" I nodded automatically, though I hadn't touched it since the night before. When she left for work, I opened the drawer again. The journal was still there. Another page filled out. June 8th, she's starting to hear him too. I dropped it. The sound echoed in the quiet kitchen. There was no way. No one else had been in this house. But as I looked up, I saw something through the window above the sink, something that made my heart freeze. Across the street, parked facing our house, was a white sedan. It wasn't unusual, people parked on that street all the time. But the windshield was completely blacked out, like someone had covered it from the inside. And for a split second, I thought I saw a reflection of movement, a hand, just barely. Then it was gone. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I told Lauren about the notebook. I showed her the entries, the handwriting, the ink that never seemed dry. She frowned, flipping through the pages. Maybe one of the previous owners left it. Then why does it keep updating? "Maybe you're tired," she said gently. "You've been working late, unpacking." I cut her off. "I'm not imagining this, look." I turned to the latest entry, June 8th, but it wasn't there anymore. Instead, a new page had been written. June 9th. "They know I'm writing again." Lauren went pale. "You wrote that, didn't you?" "Of course not." "Then how?" A soft thunk interrupted her. It came from upstairs, the sound of a vent cover hitting the floor. We looked at each other, silent. Then slowly we climbed the stairs. In the hallway, one of the vent covers had been pried open. Inside was nothing except another notebook, identical to the first one. Lauren whispered, "How many of these are there?" I didn't answer, because through the vent, behind where the notebook had been sitting, there was a faint glimmer, like a reflection. I leaned closer and realized it was glass. A small, round lens. That's when it hit me. They weren't journals, they were logs, records, and whoever had been writing them wasn't just watching the people who lived here before us. They were still watching now. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Lauren. We sat in bed, backs against the headboard, every light on. The air felt heavy, charged, like static before a storm. Neither of us wanted to say it out loud, but we both knew. Someone had been watching this house for a long time. At 3:17 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, grabbed my phone, and crouched by the vent in the hallway. Lauren stayed in the doorway, hugging her arms around herself. I aimed my phone flashlight inside the vent. The lens, that small, round glimmer, caught the light again. But the more I looked, the clearer it became. It wasn't just a reflection. It was a camera. Tiny. Old. Embedded deep in the duct with a thin black wire running along the metal like a vein. "Holy shit," I whispered. Lauren covered her mouth. "You're joking." "No, look. I tried to reach it, but my fingers just brushed the cold metal edge." The realization hit like a pulse of nausea. We'd been living here for a week. Changing clothes, sleeping, showering. Someone had seen all of it. The next morning, I called the realtor. She swore she had no idea about any cameras or vents or journals. Her voice had that fake calm people use when they're scared they'll be blamed for something. "The previous owners were an older couple," she said. "Moved to Arizona. Lovely people. No issues." When I asked for their contact info, she hesitated. "They passed away last year," she said softly. "Carbon monoxide leak." I hung up without saying goodbye. Lauren was pacing in the kitchen when I told her. "We have to leave," she said immediately. "This place is wrong, but I couldn't, not yet." Something in me needed to understand. I started searching the house, every vent, every outlet, every wall panel. By the time the sun went down, I'd found 3 more cameras. One in the living room, one behind the bathroom mirror, one inside the baseboard heater of the master bedroom. Each was wired the same way, hidden expertly, not cheap DIY stuff either. Whoever set this up knew what they were doing. Lauren cried when I pulled the 3rd one out. "Please," she begged. "Let's just go stay somewhere else tonight." I wanted to say yes. But then I found the 3rd notebook. It was wedged inside the baseboard, behind the heater and the same cracked leather, same handwriting. I flipped through the pages, and my blood ran cold. These entries weren't dated years ago. They were dated last week, September 19th. "They moved in today." She smiled when she saw the living room. "He didn't September 20th, he found the first journal. He shouldn't have opened it, September 21st. She hums while she unpacks. "He stays up late, he's suspicious already." September 22nd. "They don't see the one in the bedroom yet." I slammed it shut. My hands were shaking. Lauren just stood there staring at me. "Who's writing that?" I couldn't answer, because I didn't know. That night we packed what we could. Bags, wallets, laptop, clothes. I stuffed the notebooks into a box and evidence. I told myself. And we loaded the car. Lauren ran back inside for her phone charger. When she didn't come back after a minute, I called her name, nothing. Then from the upstairs window, I saw her standing perfectly still in our bedroom. She wasn't moving, just staring out the window. I ran inside, taking the stairs 2 at a time. "Lauren!" She didn't turn. When I reached her, I realized her eyes were glassy, unfocused. She was holding something in her hands. The 3rd notebook. It was open to a fresh page, and written there, in that same rushed, slanted handwriting, September 23rd, "He's behind me." I spun around so fast I almost fell. No one was there, just the soft whir of the ceiling fan. When I looked back, Lauren blinked hard as if snapping out of a trance. What happened?" I grabbed her arm. "We're leaving now." We didn't turn off the lights. Didn't lock the door. We just drove. We ended up in a cheap roadside motel 30 miles away. The kind with buzzing neon signs and walls thin enough to hear every sound. Lauren curled up on the bed facing the wall. She hadn't spoken since we left. I sat at the desk, the box of notebooks in front of me. I knew I should have thrown them away, but I couldn't. I needed to see how far it went. I opened the first one and the oldest. The entry stopped abruptly 6 years ago. The last page read July 11th. "The new owners will come soon." They always do. The second notebook, and the one from the kitchen, started just days after that date. The handwriting was identical. The voice the same. Whoever had written them had been living in this house for decades, watching family after family, recording everything. And when one family left, they just started writing about the next. At 3:42 a.m., my phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. But I did. No one spoke, just breathing. And faintly, so faint it barely registered, the sound of pages turning. Then the line went dead. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. When I looked up, Lauren was sitting up in bed watching me. "Who was that?" "I don't know." Her eyes flicked toward the nightstand. "Why did you move that?" Move what? She pointed. The journal box was gone. I stood, scanning the room, my heart pounding, until I saw it. The box was sitting by the door, open. The top notebook lay face up. A new entry scrawled across the page in fresh ink. September 24th, they left. But they're still being watched. I grabbed the notebook and flipped it over. There was no pen, no one else in the room. Lauren whispered, "This can't be happening." I looked toward the small window beside the bed, the one facing the parking lot. Someone was standing outside, not moving, just standing in the dark. Couldn't make out their face, but I could see the faint glow of a phone screen reflected in the glass, recording. I lunged forward, yanked the curtain shut. By the time I dared to peek again, they were gone. The next morning we checked out. We didn't even pack properly. Lauren wanted to go to her sister's place in another state, but I wanted proof. Something I could show the police or at least understand. So I drove back to the house, alone. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air felt different, empty but expectant, like someone had been waiting for me to return. I went straight to the living room vent, the one where it started. The journal was gone, but sitting in its place, tucked neatly where it had been, was something new, a small square piece of paper on it, in the same handwriting. September 25th, welcome back. I dropped the note and ran out of the house, but even as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had shifted. That maybe the watching didn't stop when we left the house. Maybe it followed. When I got back to the car, I sat there with the engine running, hands locked around the steering wheel. The note on the seat beside me felt heavier than paper should. Welcome back. I wanted to believe it was some sick prank. Maybe the realtor, maybe squatters. But the handwriting? It wasn't something copied. It felt alive, like every stroke of the pen had been pressed with intention. I drove until I hit the interstate, then pulled into a rest stop. I called Lauren, but she didn't answer. I tried again, nothing. Then I noticed something on the passenger seat, the box of journals. I hadn't brought it with me. I left it in the motel, but there it was, lid closed, like it had never left my side. I sat there staring at it, my pulse thudding in my ears. After a while, I opened the lid. Only 2 journals inside. The third one, the one that wrote about us most recently, was missing. I flipped through the first one. All old entries, same as before. Then the second, but halfway through something changed. The handwriting shifted, slightly thicker, like it had been written faster. And then I saw today's date at the top of a page. September 26th. He's starting to realize it's not about the house. I slammed it shut, heart hammering. Someone had been updating the journals even when I wasn't near them. That's when my phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. It was a photo of me, sitting right there in my car, taken from somewhere behind me. I whipped around, scanning the parking lot. There were maybe 6 other cars, a few trucks, no one nearby. Then another text came through. Check under the seat. Every nerve in my body screamed, don't. But I reached down anyway. My fingers brushed something cold. It was a small black rectangle, another camera, lens facing up. Red light blinking. I threw it out the window and peeled out of the lot. My hands were shaking so badly the wheel slipped under my grip. I didn't know where to go. My mind raced through options, police, Lauren, maybe a hotel under a fake name. But the thought that haunted me wasn't, who's doing this? It was why me. By the time I reached a gas station, it was dark. I bought a burner phone and used the payphone outside to call Lauren's sister. She picked up right away. Hey, is Lauren with you? A pause. No, I thought she was with you. She called earlier, but the line dropped. Sounded like she was crying. I hung up before I could process what that meant. If she wasn't with me, and she wasn't with her sister. I called Lauren's number again. This time she answered. Her voice was shaking. You shouldn't have gone back there. Where are you? They're not done yet. What are you talking about? She didn't answer. Just whispered, it's not the house. It's the watchers. They keep writing. Then the line cut. I sat there in my car for a long time, staring at the darkness beyond the station lights. The air was too still, too quiet. Then I noticed the payphone receiver swinging gently in the breeze, but there was no wind. I got back in the car and started driving. No destination, just distance. The headlights stretched over the road like pale veins. Every so often I'd catch movement in the side mirrors, something flickering at the edges of visibility. A shape. A person. Always just out of focus. It was almost dawn when I pulled over at a 24-hour diner off Route 14. The waitress barely looked at me when I walked in. She just poured coffee and slid it across the counter. I sat in the corner booth, the box of journals next to me, trying to think. The walls buzzed faintly with the hum of old neon signs outside. A TV above the counter played some local news segment. Then something caught my ear. Police are investigating the recent break-in at a home on Laurel Drive. Authorities say the current residents have not been located. Laurel Drive. Our street. I turned toward the TV. The photo on screen was our house. The news anchor's voice continued. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises for several nights before the couple vanished. Police have not released further details, but inside the home, investigators found several journals documenting the family's daily lives in extreme detail. My stomach turned. Those weren't just journals, they were ours. I left cash on the counter and walked out into the gray light of morning. The lot was empty except for my car and another one parked. At the far edge, white sedan, same blacked out windshield. It hadn't moved since that first night. I stared at it for a full minute before forcing myself to open my car door. When I sat down, there was a piece of paper on the driver's seat. Same handwriting. September 27th. He's getting closer. I drove until the sun disappeared again. My body felt like a wire about to snap. I couldn't tell if I was being followed anymore. The headlights behind me blurred together, each one a threat. Around midnight, I stopped at another motel, off a back road surrounded by pine trees. The air smelled like rain and wet earth. I checked in under a fake name and locked the door 3 times. I laid the 2 remaining journals out on the bedspread and started flipping through them again, looking for anything, a name, a pattern, anything. That's when I noticed something strange. Every so often, in the margins of a page, there were coordinates. Small, faint, easily missed. I typed one into my phone. It led to a location deep in the forest outside town. The pin description read, Observer Station 1. I don't know what possessed me, but I drove there. The road narrowed into gravel, then dirt. My headlights caught glimpses of thin tree trunks. The woods thick on either side. After about a mile, I saw it in a structure half hidden by brush. It looked like a shed at first. But when I got closer, I realized it was made of concrete. There was a single steel door, padlocked shut. On the front, scratched into the surface with something sharp, were 3 words, "We see you." I stepped back, pulse thundering. Something moved behind the trees. Not an animal, a silhouette watching me. "Who's there?" I called out. My voice cracked in the cold air. No answer. Just the faint crunch of footsteps moving closer. Then, from inside the concrete shed, a sound. A faint whirring, like old machinery coming to life. I ran. Branches scraped my arms, dirt kicking up under my shoes. I didn't look back until I reached the car. When I did, the headlights caught something that made my blood freeze. Dozens of red lights. Blinking. Cameras, mounted to trees. All of them pointed straight at me. I drove until I couldn't anymore. The road blurred into darkness. Now I'm parked somewhere on the outskirts of town. Writing this in the glow of the dashboard light. I don't know what the watchers are, not people, machines, something else. But they don't stop when you leave. The journals keep updating no matter where I go. And the worst part? Just now I flipped one open, fresh ink still drying. September 28th. He found the station. He won't stop writing now. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those red lights blinking in the woods. I saw them when I looked at the car's rearview mirror too. Tiny pulsing dots in the dark, like eyes waiting for me to notice. When the sun came up, I thought I'd feel better. I didn't. The world outside looked washed out, colorless, the kind of quiet that hums in your teeth. I told myself I'd drive to the police station, hand over the journals, and get as far away from that town as I could. But before I even put the car in gear, something caught my eye. There was a notebook on the passenger seat, not one of the old ones. This one was new. Clean cover. Black leather, no dust, no wear. It hadn't been there when I fell asleep. My chest tightened as I reached for it. The leather was warm, like it had been sitting in the sun, but the car had been locked all night. I opened it. First page, September 29th. He's in his car, pretending to leave. He doesn't know they're already inside. My breath caught. I turned in the seat, eyes darting across the empty interior. The back seat was clear. The floor. The mirrors showed nothing but sunlight, and then I heard it. A soft tick from the glove compartment, another tick. Like metal on plastic. I opened it slowly. Inside was a small recorder, the kind used for interviews. Red light flashing, it was recording. And next to it, another note. Folded neatly, don't stop reading, my hands were shaking. But I did. I kept reading the journal, flipping pages faster and faster. The entries were written in real time. Each one describing what I was doing. He's holding the book now. He's starting to panic. He doesn't realize what the watchers want isn't him. It's the story. I stopped breathing. Another entry right below it. He's looking at this sentence right now. I dropped the journal and stumbled out of the car. My legs barely held me up. The world felt like it was narrowing, every sound, every breath too loud. I looked around, half expecting someone to be standing there. Phone in hand, laughing, nothing, just open road, the whisper of wind through dead grass. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. That's when my phone buzzed. A new text from that same unknown number. Check the trunk. My mouth went dry. I didn't want to. I swear every cell in my body screamed not to. But I walked to the back anyway, each step like walking into my own grave. I popped the latch. The trunk opened slow. Inside, more journals. Dozens of them, all labeled with dates stretching back years. Some older than I was. I picked one up. The leather cracked when I opened it. The first line made my skin crawl. June 12, 1984. Moved into the new house today. Nice neighborhood. Feels safe. The handwriting was different. Older. Looser. But the story was the same. Different names. Different house. Same watchers. And the last page, July 3rd, found the journals behind the vent. Thought I was reading history. Didn't realize I was writing it. The air around me felt colder, heavier, like something was watching, waiting for me to finish. I backed away, slammed the trunk shut, and got in the car. I didn't care where I went. I just drove. I left the journals behind this time, but when I stopped to catch my breath at a red light, I looked in the rearview mirror. There was one on the back seat, the same new one, still open, still writing, ink spreading across the page as if an invisible hand was moving the pen. September 29th, he's driving again. He thinks he can leave. I grabbed it and threw it out the window. It hit the pavement and skidded into a ditch. But I swear in the mirror I saw the pages still flipping like someone was turning them from far away. It's been 3 days now. I haven't gone home. I haven't called anyone. I don't know where Lauren is, or if she was ever really with me at all. The news keeps saying the couple vanished. No names, no faces. Just the couple. I keep seeing my car in the footage they show parked in front of the house. But I'm watching it from another angle, like someone else's memory. I haven't touched another journal since that day, but I can feel it. The story writing itself somewhere. Lines forming every time I move, breathe, think. Sometimes when I look at my hands, I swear I can see faint ink stains on my fingers. Last night I stayed at a rest stop near the state line. I fell asleep in the car again, even though I told myself I wouldn't. When I woke up, the passenger window was fogged. Someone had written a single word on the glass, "Continue," and on the seat beside me, another notebook, same leather cover, same weight, the first line already written, September 30th. He's almost done pretending this isn't real. I don't know what the watchers are or how they write. Maybe they're people. Maybe they're everyone. Maybe once you read their words, you become one of them. Maybe the journals are how they keep their story going, one reader at a time. I haven't opened the new one yet. I don't want to, but I can feel it humming beside me like it's alive, and the longer I ignore it, the louder it gets. If you're reading this, if you found this entry somewhere online or in a book or maybe tucked behind an air vent in a house you just moved into, Stop now. Because the last page isn't written yet, and when it is, it'll have your name on it.